Hey guys, what's up? Stock Retail coming back to you. Wanted to talk a little bit about forecast today, what is going on in Q3, why I believe that's the best quarter of the entire retail or ape era. Also, some of you, if you are, I know a large part of my audience is a YouTube audience here. I have shared, I kind of, let's say, grew up as a Twitter slash X ape. And about halfway through this journey, started doing some YouTubes. And so I have, a community that I'm in on the Twitter side. And so if you were on the Twitter side, those of you who follow me on both, maybe um, you saw a swirl this week of some people trying to stir discontentment with Adam and team, which is obviously ridiculous in light of how well they're doing. But I like to say, let the numbers tell a story. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see how our management team is doing. And how our profits are tracking, and specifically, like, what's that going to mean for your stock? I'm going to talk a little bit about valuation and what's it going to mean for your stock. So let's just dive in. First off, the box office. I'm still tracking for Q3 between 2.5 to 2.7 billion at the domestic box office. I'm seeing some apes on Twitter, talk about 3 billion. I I don't yet believe that myself, but that's okay. I'm glad people are excited. I'm glad people are trying to motivate each other to get out and support the movies and the business that we love. But I'm committed to telling you what I believe are the real numbers and not hyping. So I believe we're kind of at 2.5 to 2.7 billion on the quarter, which is fantastic, by the way. That's an amazing number considering we just came out of the strike. Here's what's left. So if you think about what's driving my numbers, we still have a lot left coming from Deadpool and Wolverine. Um, we have more left from Twisters and Despicable Me 4. A little bit left from Inside Out 2, probably $9 or $10 million left from that. But then, of course, Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is tracking pretty well. Buzz has been picking up for that. Alien Romulus seems to be getting some real good initial reviews. It ends with us. If you haven't been tracking, that's looking like maybe a $50 to $60 million opening weekend right now. I will tell you that is not what I was tracking. That has increased my numbers because of how it's opening and then how it should run after that for the rest of the quarter. Transformers 1 is coming. There's only 18 days in the quarter from Transformers. There's only 11 days in the quarter from The Wild Robot, and there's only 11 days from Wolves in the quarter. And by the way, on Apple movies, one thing that I'm noticing is they're not doing a great job with marketing. It seems like Apple just, apologies to the Apple team. I think you're making great movies. I'd love to see you grow as a studio, but I saw some rumblings this week. They might even be backing off. And I think what's happening is Apple just is sort of acting like a streamer because they're just throwing stars into movies and then not really putting real marketing behind it and just thinking you're going to find numbers there. And it's like, no, you got to actually make good movies. You got to get the word out. You got to act like a real studio, like Sony or Disney or Paramount would act. And you see that works when there's good marketing. I mean, look at It Ends With Us. When you find the right story, you tell it well, you put buzz behind it, it does well. So the reason I just mentioned that then is, you know, uh, to talk about a 3 billion number or any number that you've got, it's got to come from specific movies. Now, there's other movies I'm not even showing you here, like Afraid, and some other cool movies that are coming out. So there's plenty of other movies through the quarter as well. So there's plenty of reason for bullishness, but I'm just telling you to get to a forecast. I believe you've got to go movie by movie and say how much is that going to do in this quarter. It also matters just in this quarter. So like Transformers and Wild Robot are going to have a lot of numbers next quarter. But all that to say, I'm very bullish. Like I said, the rest of the numbers I'm going to show you this video, I'm getting from a 2.5 to $2.7 billion box office. So let's actually just go right through that. What I want to show you is versus last year. So if I'm at, you can see a real specific number now. I'm at actually 2.563 billion, or 2,563 million at a domestic box office for this quarter. Last year, exact same quarter, so we had Barbenheimer. You can see it's roughly the same, not quite $100 million more. So we're down 3% year over year. Now, granted, everything I'm going to show you from Q3 this year is a forecast, and I always remind you guys, if you got a forecast, it's going to be wrong somewhere. What I'm going to lead us to is taking a look at especially how has our management team led the company. And again, numbers tell a story. So if the box office is actually down year over year, but I told you a minute ago that we're going to have the best quarter we've ever had. And so you should be saying, retail, how in the world are you telling me the box office is down and we're going to make more profits? Well, let's go through the business. You got to look at this level of detail to kind of get there. And I've told you guys I have spreadsheets where I look at every single line item from the earnings reports for years on end. I've got. All right, so my forecast has food and beverage going up. Now, what you would notice is there was a pretty big dip last year. So this is the level of detail you got to look at. There was a dip last year on how much money was getting paid per person. I believe I remember early in the quarter there were some pretty big discount days that some of the theaters ran. So you were bringing in a different customer. And then some of the movies were, again, bringing in a different customer who maybe was more of a discount customer who hadn't been there. But if you look at recent trends, if you look at the last few quarters and you look at all the quarters before Q3 last year, what I've got us at about 740 a person, a little less than that, is tracking. That's more where our business has been at. So I've got a bigger number year over year on food and beverage. Apologies for all this coughing. Um, but you can see that's mostly driven by just an increase in the spending per person. And that is not any kind of hype. That's actually been happening. If you look at recent quarters, that's where we're at. So that gives us about $30 million a year. So I'm just going to show you where does my increase year over year come from if we're down at the box office. Popcorn, candy, and distribution. So UNK here just means unknown. We don't get a specific number for that. So I am still very much wild guessing what popcorn, candy, and distribution. I can get a pretty good guess because there's been little hints here and there of different numbers. Like with the Taylor Swift thing, we saw some numbers on kind of what was AMC's cut a little bit. I don't fully know, but we at least have some hints. But I have to guess like how much merch is there and some stuff like that. So when we have the Usher movie coming up, or the Usher concert film, we had nothing last year in this quarter. Popcorn had barely ramped up at this time last year. Now we're in 7,000 plus doors, plus one of those really being Amazon. So we are all over the place with popcorn. We have candy ramping up. Last night, my son and I, my oldest, we went to see Deadpool and Wolverine, and I bought a bag of the chocolate covered raisins because that's my favorite that we sell. And so just from last year, that was basically nothing on this line. And to this year, you can see I'm saying maybe $9 million this quarter. By the way, that's a net number. I'm taking out expenses on that. So wild guess there. Your guess is as good as mine. Some people think I'm way too low with that number. Some people might say I'm too high. But whatever it is, from last year to this year, it's practically nothing last year. And then you've got some kind of increase this year because we have the Usher movie, we have popcorn expansion across thousands of doors, and we have candy that didn't exist at this time last year. All right, so film costs. That is a big expense. That's one of our biggest expenses. I can track quarter to quarter to quarter. We pay a certain percent of admissions pretty much. Admissions are a little bit down this year because on that down box office, you've got less attendees. It's actually kind of flat because I've also got a little bit higher per ticket. But if I look, so we've got some, excuse me, we've got some movies that have been having really long runs, like Inside Out 2. We know Deadpool's going to keep running. Twisters will have long legs. Despicable Me has long legs. When you have movies that run a little bit longer, the exhibitors, the theaters, start keeping a little bit better cut on the longer it runs. The launch, often there is a higher percent you're paying back to studios, and then the longer a movie runs and the better its legs, now the movie theaters start to make a little bit better margin, let's call it. They keep a little bit more of their admissions. So you can see it's not big. I've just got us basically improved on our expense there of about $5 million from last year to this year. I'm just showing you the big drivers. I'm not going to show you every single line that I forecast, but I'm showing you what gave us the biggest changes year to year. So you can see so far kind of gaining $30 million on food and beverage, gaining $9 million on popcorn, candy, and distribution, gaining $5 million on less expenses on the film costs that we pay back. Rent is down. You can see that in recent results as well. So gaining $6 million there. We've closed some properties. We've renegotiated some rents on some existing properties, and we're paying much less in rent. So there's a gain of $6 million from last year to this year. So you start to see why, even though the box office is down a little bit, Your management team has improved some of these lines to where we're making more profit. On depreciation and amortization, I want to make it clear that is a non-cash expense. Told you that a few times on this channel and on my Twitter feed. Um, it basically is a way to encourage investment. It's in the tax code. It's an IRS thing. Um, when you do larger, longer term investments, capital investments, um, then you can depreciate those and amortize those over a certain amount of years. But what's happening is because we've got some years where AMC hasn't necessarily been able to invest a lot strategically, right? We've been tight with cash. Some of our depreciation and amortization, partly I'm sure because there's some properties we've closed, so there's nothing in those properties anymore to depreciate. Like say you had put in a bunch of new, I don't know, projectors, and now you don't have that property. You're not depreciating that projector anymore. Um, and by the way, I made that up. I don't actually know the accounting rules in the movie theater industry of what is a capital expense that is depreciable. You get into basically some, the CPAs would have to talk about this, the public accountants. But bottom line, um, we have been seeing depreciation and amortization get lower and lower quarter to quarter for the last few years. I imagine in the future, when we start investing again, you'll see this number start to climb again. But reminder, it's a non-cash expense that just basically reduces your income taxes. But you'll notice from last year to this year, that's a $12 million improvement on that line. So this is going to tell you where am I getting my numbers from. You can see the big drivers. And then borrowing costs. And I mean, this is a direct result of your management team reducing the amount of debt we owe. I've got a pretty wild guess here on the Q3 number. I have to guess based on what we landed at in Q2 and what I've seen get paid off since then, and how's that different from when we started Q2, and what's that going to mean in terms of our payments. So this could swing. This is a forecast, but I've got us year over year at $9 million improvement. That means $9 million less interest payments, less cash that we're burning on borrowing costs. That's a significant improvement to our bottom line, our earnings. So um, I'm going to give you the bottom line. Last year on Barbenheimer and the $2.6 billion box office, we had $12 million positive earnings. We had $12 million in net income. I'm saying this year we're landing somewhere. I would have loved to have given you a range because I like to hedge my bets. I probably would just call it like 60 to 80 or even like 55 to 80 or something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and give you a number here and just call it $77 million of net income. That is a $65 million improvement year over year. We only had $12 million of positive income. We're improving by 65. We're basically landing at 6x the best quarter we've ever had in the retail slash ape era. Now, there's a lot in here that I'm forecasting, and there's a lot I'm counting on in terms of how the movies are going to land. So this number's going to shift. I'm not asking you to lock in this number. I'm not committing myself to locking in this number. But bottom line, even if I'm way off, either to the downside or the upside, we are having the most profitable quarter we have ever had. That I have said many times, and even I've said that I think since maybe a year ago or something. I don't remember how long ago. Um, uh, I've been saying it a long time because I'm pretty confident in it that your management team is delivering the biggest quarter at the bottom line that you have seen. And you'll see free cash flows from this too. So let's just talk about what have been those drivers. What got us from last year to this year, and what's changed? It's going to kind of be a repeat of what we just saw, but we're just going to kind of red, yellow, green this. So on the industry side, let's just look at what's controlled by the industry and what is controlled by your management team. So we said the box office is down. Hollywood is delivering us less movie revenues year over year. So the industry has not done us a favor. We've gone down in terms of movie revenues year over year. So bummer, but hey, at least we're still having a great quarter. Expenses. I just showed you how on the expenses, your management team has reduced our expenses. Revenue from popcorn, candy, and distribution, just showed you how that a lot of that didn't even exist last year, and your management team has brought that in. On rents, your management team has lowered your rents. Um, on expenses, I should have called that operating expenses. That's another line I didn't show you on the last slide. These guys have improved their operating expenses as a percent of the revenue. And so that's what that was. All right, so rent is an expense. They've reduced rent year over year. Borrowing costs, I showed you how we've paid down debt, so now we're having lower interest payments. We've improved that year over year. That's the management team. That's not the industry doing that. And then food and beverage per person has improved year over year. So if you just kind of look at the bottom line, your management team has delivered a whole host of improvements that I told you are 6 times better profits than last year on a lower box office. I don't mind saying, some of you know who I'm talking about. This week, on the heels of an announcement that we had a record setting June, all time best ever EBITDA at the end of June in a strike impacted quarter, there was an influencer who I've been very vocally against for a very long time because I warned you that I did not believe he was on the right team. Um, he came out this week and cast all kinds of shade at Adam and team and basically said, your management team isn't, unlocking shareholder value. I would hope you look at this slide and you know that this is based on numbers. This is not based on opinion. This is based on the actual business results of how we've been going. If someone's telling you that your management team isn't unlocking shareholder value when we're 6xing our profits year to year on a box office that's down, I hope you see that is not someone to listen to. I want to talk about operating leverage and sort of fixed versus variable costs. I told you before the earnings call, if you were on Twitter, you saw me talk about, I called it gross to net in the call. The team called it operating leverage. I'm going to go ahead and use their language. We're talking about the same thing. We're just talking about your ability to keep more of your revenue. So gross to net sort of means from the top line to the bottom line, from your gross revenues to your net earnings or your net revenues. How much noise is there in between? How much are you losing in terms of expenses? And then these guys called it operating leverage. And here's the thing. So I had tweeted something because like I said, I talked about it even before the call. And then what I wanted to show people on Twitter, you guys might have heard of Grok. It's like Twitter's AI. I keep calling it Twitter. I'm just used to that. X is AI. Side note, I've been very vocal. I do not yet believe in really using AI, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Grok for real deep analysis. It's gotten a lot of things wrong. I see people posting things from AI that are just completely obviously wrong sometimes in terms of numbers and things and business results. But I thought Grok gave a good answer on this. Just go check this out sometime or Google this. Google about operating leverage and Google about fixed versus variable costs. And you can see operating leverage can be beneficial for a company. So you can see increased profitability, improved efficiency, greater financial stability. What happens with operating leverage, or why I'm calling out fixed versus variable costs. This was even one of the very first videos I made way back in 2022. I'm a 2021 ape, but I hadn't been on YouTube. So way back in 2022, one of the first videos I made was to show you guys that AMC has a very high fixed cost model. What that means is if you bring in $1 of revenue or $1 billion of revenue, you have some of the same costs. They're just locked in. Think about rents. You're just paying that rent month in, month out, or quarter in, quarter out. You got to pay the rent. It's just a locked in cost. And so AMC has some fixed costs in its model that are just always there. Well, so what you can imagine, if the cost isn't changing, when your revenues go down and you still have the cost, that is one heck of a scary scenario. Well, what did we just go through? We went through the pandemic where everything shut down, but AMC still had costs. That's a nightmare scenario. But the reverse is true too. So it's kind of like a all or nothing. The reverse is true where when revenues go up, what are we in right now? We're in a box office recovery, plus we've added popcorn, plus we've added distribution, plus we've added candy, plus we've grown merch, plus we've added credit cards. When your revenues go up, but you have fixed costs, man, I got to start using a camera. I'm using my hands here to show you all this, but none of you see it. When your revenues go up, but your costs don't, you can just hear plainly, you get to keep more and more of the money the higher the revenues go. That's called operating leverage. So what's happening is, I said in a video recently, let's say you have a manager at a property and you have like this one general manager or something at that property. If you show one movie or you show 100 movies, you're paying that one manager. You don't have to kind of think it through very hard to go, oh, well, when we show more movies and we bring in more customers, but we still only have that one manager we're paying, and we still have that same rent we're paying on that property, I'm going to start keeping more and more of the money. That's operating leverage. So what you should be hearing is as popcorn grows, as Now, popcorn's actually going to have some variable costs, but we'll talk about that later. But anyway, as popcorn grows, as distribution grows, as candy grows, as the box office especially grows, and food and beverage sales grows, and merchandise sales grow, but in particular the box office, AMC is going to keep a higher and higher and higher profit margin. Our margins even are going to go up. So it's not just like, okay, bring in $1 and we gain another 20 cents on our earnings. It's going to start being one more dollar of revenue at the box office is going to start bringing in like 60 cents. And 60, Adam said this. He said in the call, there'll be some times where we're going to have like anywhere from 50 to 65% incremental earnings on revenue. Incremental just means, for every dollar you bring in, how much more are you keeping? You're going to see AMC's profitability. So what I was showing you when I go back, I guess it's got all this animation. I'm not going to go back. But when I was saying, hey, on a down box office, we're actually up 6 times on our earnings. The team has started to really, really tighten up expenses and bring in additional revenues. And so as the box office grows, this is why I keep telling you 2025 is going to be bananas compared to what I'm showing you now. And then 2026 is going to be like bananas times 10. Well, okay, not times 10. Now I'm hyping a little. But you're going to see as the box office grows, as the industry recovers, AMC's profitability is going to kind of go parabolic. It's going to go up way faster than what the box office is growing. It's just going to be phenomenal. So I want you to just keep learning about this. Some of these terms I'm saying: operating leverage, gross to net, fixed costs, variable costs. And when you have fixed costs, those they're locked, they're fixed, they're stuck. They don't go up as your revenues go up. For AMC, that's going to be a really great thing. And that was one of the first sort of thesis videos I ever made, was to show you that. And here we are, and it's happening. All right. So what's the forward view? I already told you Q3, best ever of the retail ape era. Q4, I actually think if you remove certain non-cash expenses, maybe yet another best. Like we may break Q3's record too. But you'll see in Q4, I have a feeling we're still dealing with some impairment costs. So if you include non-cash expenses, I don't think Q4 will beat Q3, at least right now. That's not my forecast. But if you remove some of those non-cash expenses, then Q4 is actually, and so if you look at cash flows, I think Q4 is actually perhaps going to break a new record on cash flows. So Q3 is going to give us probably our biggest cash flow we've ever had. I've been talking earnings, but cash flow is going to be, in some cases, maybe even bigger, because I told you some of these expenses are non-cash expenses. So then I think Q3, our biggest cash flows ever. Q4 may be then even bigger. And like I said, as you roll into 2025, we just keep growing. Let's see about Q1. Q1 is always the lightest quarter of the year. So we're going to have to, I'm still working on my 2025 forecast, but overall on the year, it's going to be just like insane new levels of records. We're just going to be breaking record after record after record and be wildly profitable. Remember, maybe I will go back and show you. Remember that I said Q3, and I just told you Q4 will be similar other than this impairment cost. We're almost making $100 million at the bottom line, and cash flows may be even bigger than that. So what does that start to look like at full year views? And I'm going to talk to you, actually, let's just go through right now to talk about valuation of the stock. So I think right now I'm using like 361 million shares. That may grow a little bit because we're going to be paying off debt, but we can talk about something called value creation. You've heard me say that. But for now, let's use that number. If you just use like a 23 PE ratio, now understand, 20 is a pretty normal price to earnings ratio. Kind of research that if you haven't heard of that. It's just how many years of earnings do you price into a stock? And AMC was at about 24 PE in 2018. And just understand too, usually a PE ratio is going to be higher for a growing company. And I just told you, AMC is going to be growing very, very rapidly. So in my mind, this is still a pretty conservative number even that I'm showing you. AMC is going to be in a time of rapid growth. If you used a 23 PE ratio for roughly kind of like a 12-month projected earnings, at the end of Q4, AMC stock, just in terms of a boring, old, non-glamorous, a valuation that's been used for a century, AMC would be probably like a $12 stock just on the bottom line on earnings because we'll be profitable. Um, and so this is why I'm saying at some point Wall Street cannot hold us down. And that's just kind of based on we're just slowly starting to get out of the strike era. And then at the end of 2025, if you look at what I'm projecting in earnings in 2025, you already double from there, and it's like a $24 stock. And then at the end of 2026, because of where I see us going, well, now we're talking like a $60 stock. So we're talking about like 12x the current price. We closed at $5 on Friday, just in the next like 2 years. That I think, now granted, remember this is a forecast. Forecasts are wrong. I am looking way out, and the longer out you go, the more uncertainty there is. But if you look at the industry announcements, like D23, Disney's big conference is going on right now, and you see all the announcements they're making of like the Star Wars movies and the Marvel movies and all of the Pixar movies and the Disney animation, just Disney alone is creating huge, huge buzz on how much the box office is recovering. And then go look at all the movies coming out in 2025 and 2026 across all the studios. So I have a lot of confidence here in what the management team is doing and what the industry is doing to say on just a pure fair valuation of a price to earnings ratio, this stock is deeply, deeply, deeply undervalued. And then remember, we all think there's a short squeeze on top of that. So if the valuation starts to push on the stock, the shorts get even more squeezed. And that has been always my thesis. You can go find a Reddit article that I wrote, more than 3 years ago, where I said it would be profits that would break the shorts. And you can hear Adam, remember when he did his tour through all the theaters, and I went and attended the one he did in Seattle. And he said, it's profits that are going to break the shorts. And what I'm telling you is we are here. We are we are now a profitable company. So let's talk about some context on all this. Just what's going on with AMC and why, if we're this profitable company, are we still seeing negative article after negative article? Why are we seeing influencers stir up all kinds of negativity and doubt and casting shade at Adam and wanting you to doubt your management team when everything I just showed you shows that their management is delivering results? Well, let's think about this. I think this is a big social experiment, like a generational or even multi-generational rare event that you just won't see. When have you ever seen in history a company that starts thriving that is owned by retail, right? What happens is Wall Street is always in front of us. There is insider information, there are tips, there are things people know, there's IPOs that retail can't get in on. We are not usually at the front of the line. Retail is at the back of the line, and Wall Street keeps it that way. Bankers keep it that way, and even politicians. We all look at how well our Congress people are doing on their trades. They're making those trades before you. So we've got banks, investment houses, billionaires, and politicians all in front of us in line, time and again. It is a broken system that benefits the wealthy and their lackeys, and it does not benefit retail. This, AMC, flips all of that on its head. We are first in line. We got here at the bottom. I mean, $5 right now in a post-split world, this is a terrible, terrible price. It's deeply undervalued. But we're getting in on the ground floor. Retail owns this company. You can go look at any metric out there, and there was even an article just this week. I'm sorry, I don't remember the source off the top of my head, but there was an article this week that reaffirmed retail owns this company. This is flipping everything on its head. So as it's profitable, it's retail who's going to benefit. I guarantee you the machine does not like that. So plan A, right, was bankruptcy. They wanted to bankrupt this company and we didn't let it happen. And that has been one heck of a fight by your management team and by retail sticking in and not leaving. Right? There's a reason we say AMC not leaving, or we say apes not leaving, that hashtag on Twitter. And your management team, this also is why I really get fired up when people cast shade. First off, think through 2020. When did you come into AMC? I want you to just think about that. I came in at the beginning, well, really December 2020, but kind of let's call it January 2021. Well, Adam and team had to manage AMC through the entire lockdown. They were fighting for this company a year before the apes even showed up, a year before DFV became famous. Adam already had to save this company for a whole year. We weren't here. He guided this company through that. Sean guided this company through that. And the rest of the directors and managers and everybody who contributed their brain power guided this company through 2020 before we were even here. Then, 3 more years later, we still have not gone bankrupt. Adam has said over my dead body, we know that there were golden parachutes. We know Apollo wanted this company to go bankrupt and hand it over to the creditors. And Adam has not let that happen, and his team has not let that happen. So plan A went out the window for the bad guys because retail stayed and your management company refused to roll over. So plan B. Plan B was to drive us out. Get retail out, let the institutions take over the shares so they can ride the gravy train through the recovery. And I have been diamond handing, and you have been diamond handing, and we are not giving them our shares. Retail is going to benefit from this recovery that I just pointed you to, from this operating leverage as the box office recovers and as the management team has implemented whole new lines of business. We're the ones who are going to ride this train up, this rocket ship. So plan B has failed because we have plan APE. All your bases are belong to us. Maybe some of you have kind of heard that saying, just get that I'm just being silly here, but also a little bit serious. We're not leaving. You're going to pay us. We win. So I just want you in particular to pay attention to plan B. They couldn't make us bankrupt, so they want to drive us out. So when an influencer throws shade at Adam, even though I just showed you how we're more profitable now on a lower box office, as driven by your management team. We just had all-time record June EBITDA, and some influencer wants to tell you to doubt Adam? That's plan B. They're part of plan B. And I want to remind you too, this is what happens, and this is how I've ended up blocking a lot of people who pretended to be apes. This is a very old slide I did, I don't know, 9 months, a year ago, more. I think this is when we were all fighting about the ape conversion, and everybody wanted you to be really angry at Adam because of our share price. But I just want to remind you what happens in each place. Listen, it's over in New York, and you could say London and Frankfurt and just the homes of high finance, where you get all the things that happen to us. And go back, I'm not going to review them. I've done plenty of videos. Look for one like about the manipulator and some stuff like that. But high frequency trading and wash sales, spoofing, mismarking shorts as longs, short exemptions, FTDs, dark pools, options manipulation, short and distort, internalization, swaps, tokens, and there's more. That's not done in Kansas. Attacking our share price is not done in Kansas. Don't let people trick you into being mad at the wrong people. Guess who wants you mad at Adam? These people. Guess who has a lot of money to pay influencers? These people. You're being misdirected to look at the wrong people and make the wrong advocacy. You got to be loud, guys. You got to be loud and push, but you got to push for the right things. We need to fix a broken financial, actually it's not broken. We need to fix a corrupt financial system that works very well. That's why I say it's not broken. It's working really well. It's not working for you. It's not working for me. It's working for the 0.1%. So we need to advocate and push and fight and never quit until this system is for the people. That's what I'm here for. And I hope that's what you're here for. And that, I'm sorry guys, it's not in Adam's hands to fix that. I hope he is an advocate for us. I hope he fights like heck for us. And I believe he has. But he's not going to fix all of Wall Street. That's going to be us and finding some people who will partner with us in that work. And speaking of which, it's not just Wall Street, it's at DC too. Because I kind of said, and you know what, I've given some credit on some things that have happened. We've seen Sam go to jail from FTX. We've seen CZ go to jail from Binance. We've seen a lot of stuff about Andrew Left and Dougie, and there's various actions going on with Uniswap. And I've got a whole video on that. Forgive me, I'm not remembering all the people I want to think about. There's an Ethereum thing going on. So credit on the work that's being done, but there are rules and regulations. I mean, just the fact that people can mismark thousands and hundreds and thousands and even actually millions of transactions, mismark shorts as longs, and that they're still in business. I'm tired of fines and slaps on the wrist. Put those people out of business. If you can't play by the rules, you're out. Like, I'm dead serious. Just kick people out, put them in jail, and that stuff's going to stop real fast. All right, so there's stuff that's getting ignored by captured regulators. Regulators who come from Goldman Sachs and who come from JP Morgan and who come from hedge funds and are now regulating the hedge funds. We all know that's baloney. So get mad at the wrong, don't get mad at the wrong people. Get mad at the right people. Guys, what's Adam's job? Marketing, food and beverage sales, studio agreements, operations, popcorn, candy, merchandise. I made this slide before we had distribution. And I showed you, let's go to it, the stuff that he can control. Improvement, 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 improvement. He's getting it done. So, I don't know. If someone's going to tell me not to like him, they better give me actual hardcore business results that measure the management of this company. Don't give me some crap about the stock price. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And you don't normally hear me talk like that, but when I told you in a recent video I'd love to curse out this person and any other people, there's plenty of others. Watch for the so-called apes who do nothing but talk badly about Adam. Meanwhile, Adam's delivering, and I say Adam, but I really want, if any of his management team ever hears my videos, I just want you to know I'm thankful all the way through the entire organization. You guys have done a great job, and I'm really proud of you, and I'm with all of you. Adam is front and center, he's in the spotlight, but I see all of you, and I really appreciate you, and that includes the board. You have not allowed this company to go bankrupt, and I just want to specifically tell you all thank you. But to get mad at that team who's managed through this disaster scenario of literally having the doors closed, I just, if you follow people who are doing that, I can't help you anymore. I've pointed it out and pointed it out and pointed it out. And so either you're too dense to see it or you're actually part of the problem. I'm sorry, I cannot put that nicer than that. So, bottom line, management has been diligently moving AMC to a season of harvest. We're about to bring in all the fruit, guys. We're about to just enjoy the fruits of everyone's labor, of the retail fight, the apes fight, of Adam and team's fight. We're going to start finally seeing the part where it feels really, really good and we see a lot of profits from it. And so shorts and shills do not want you to know that. There's a reason I'm here, because I can see, if you've been around me enough, you know that my forecasts have been wildly accurate, that I'm beating Wall Street's forecast, that I'm getting things right within sometimes even 99% accuracy. And to do that for 2.5 years of forecasts doesn't mean I'll always be right. I tell you guys that every time because I'm going to feel bad if I mislead anybody. So I'm trying very hard to make sure you understand it's a forecast and it can be wrong. But if I've been that accurate and I'm giving you the forward view, then I know what's coming, or at least I have confidence in what's coming. No wonder shorts and shills don't want you in that mindset of we are now profitable. They want you in a backwards mindset from like April when the strike was happening. And I showed you that in a recent video. And if they can't get you there, then at least they don't want you in a place where you actually celebrate what's going on. They want you annoyed and discontent, and they want you discontent with the wrong people. They've got to make sure that you don't have a good attitude, that you don't know where we're going, and that you sort of fight against retail. Think about that for just a minute. I just told you the whole system does not work for retail, and retail's at the back of the line. And they want you fighting retail and fighting Adam, who is driving the company owned by retail. Please see how they are undermining you at every step. And the people who undermine you, you got to start kicking them to the curb. And you got to start doing that a lot more forcefully than you've been doing, because I just don't know why we accept that anymore. And why we say, well, just play nice. You know what? They're not playing nice. And I can still keep my integrity and my honor. But it's okay sometimes to stand up and shove a bully back and say, get the heck out of here. I want nothing to do with you. That is not bad behavior. Let's not get twisted who the toxic people are with the bad behavior. And it's okay to stop that. I'm going to stand up and stop those people. And I invite you to join me to say, enough. We don't want you here. We don't want your noise. We don't want your lies. We don't want your manipulation. We don't want your negativity. We don't want your toxicity. You are out. I'm going to focus over here on positive results, on partnering with my management team instead of tearing them down, on building up, on winning, on retail, on fixing a corrupt and broken system. That's where my energy is going to be. And so I'm going to celebrate what's good. And there is a lot to celebrate right now, guys. And the best is yet to come. That's why I keep pointing you forward. And as always, we will win. Let's go.